welcome to the Crafty Mini, and in this one, as you can see with the title and thumbnail, sometimes you have to just wing it. This particular bust I've had sitting for a while now, not quite sure with what I'm going to do with it, and I just thought, let's just get some paint on, let's see what happens. And that's sort of like the idea of this video. Is sometimes you can get over complicated with planning, thinking about colour schemes and various other things, and you just want to whack some paint on and get it painted. So it had a Pro Acryl jade base coat. I've then sprayed it with some grey rattle can spray, not necessarily from above, but from where the face is pointing, almost like she's emerging out of water, because it's, from what I can tell on this bust, it's almost like a mermaid type creature. And then we're going to go in now and start working on all the skin tones. I don't normally zenithal highlight anything. If those who've watched my channel for a while, it's very rare that I do it, but on this one it was more so I could figure out where I wanted the lighter parts of the skin showing, as if she's coming up towards where her face is pointing, because it's not a traditional zenithal from above, and I haven't heavily hit it all over, which I see on some channels. I've just hit from where her face is, and you can see all the little curves, especially on the shoulders and things, and the back of the braids of her hair, where you'll see more of that green coming through. And then for the first layer, we've mixed the light ultramarine blue and the jade, 1-to-1 mix, and it just gives this really nice, cool, saturated bluish green, which I want. And this is effectively going to be almost like the mid-tone, and then we'll build up layers, because I'm going to leave a little bit of that jade green where it's in the recesses shining through. And then as we progress throughout this particular paint job, you'll see all I was really doing, I think it's only about four colours I've used, and I'm just mixing them all sort of haphazardly on the wet palette to come up with different tones, and then using those to create all the light and the contrast on the actual miniature. And it was actually a bit of fun, and just having to paint something and just going for it and not worrying too much about how it's going to look in the end. And overall it's not too bad, to finish. So that's going to be the sort of premise of the video, and I'll go into more detail as we go through, but on to the next clip. Right, so the skin has pretty much all been base coated in this blue-green mix, and now what we're doing is adding more of that it's called faded ultramarine. It's like a pastel violet, bluish purple almost, and it mixes really nice with the green and gives a nice highlight colour. And now it's just a case of going around and sketching in all those highlights on the face, and then working my way down the actual the bust itself. And it's picking out the areas that was on that original when I did that overspray with the grey. What you can do, and this is what I did with this one as well, I find it helps, is I take a photo of it, and I've got that on my screen in front of me while I'm painting, so should I forget anything exactly where the highlights are going, I'll refer to that as well, and it'll just show me that, okay, this is where I need to be concentrating on the lighter colours. Now this first layer, as it's going on, you'll see briefly, because obviously it's wet, but the actual, it'll fade in, because I'm only going 2-to-1 with the faded ultramarine, and I'm going to build up this in successive layers, just so that the opacity builds up. And I'm doing very thin layers as well, almost like glazes. There's a bit of water in there just to thin it down, and I'm just taking my time and building it up. One of the nice things of painting like this as well, it's a bit sketchy, and a bit more sort of rough and ready. There's certain areas of the model I'm not painting, and I'm not wasting my time doing that there then, and it's just building up the contrast in the areas that I want it. And you'll see it towards the end, like the crease in her neck, the back of her shoulders, the way she's sort of angled and sort of turned with her spine is turning as she's sort of coming up. So the one sort of bum cheek gets a bit more of a highlight than the others as well, and it's just to show that the light's coming straight down and she's catching it as she's moving through the water. And it was actually a really nice and enjoyable way of painting. I normally get a bit too in my own head with all the details and things, and with this just being a bit sketchier, a bit fun, I've had a lot more enjoyment out of it as well. And then also mixing that jade green is in every single colour on this miniature when we go through and see all the other steps, And again, it's that unifying, that mother colour technique that you can see on a lot of videos that people do, and it's just really nice because it brings everything together, and it's all part of the same. The colours are all part of the same sort of family, as it were, and everything sort of blends together. Even when I come to do the dark highlighting on the braids in the hair as well, all that will show up a bit more. And this was more about just sort of not necessarily trying new techniques or anything, but just having a bit more fun and enjoying it, taking my time and just figuring out, you know, I'll just put some paint here, let's see how this looks, and being a bit more expressive. And this, you'll see here, is something I do a bit. So you see that stabbing motion I've just made from the brush there? It's just to remind myself where I want the light source to come from, and so I know where I'm going to concentrate on the major highlights. And again, referring to that sort of that colour map that I've got on my screen, where I've done the initial base coat and the highlighting spray, just to pick out the key areas. And again, so what I'm doing now is I've added a bit more of the faded ultramarine, so now it's about 3-to-1 with the jade green, and I'm taking my time now and going around picking out the areas. Now when this first goes on, it looks really quite a high contrast and really bright, but just remember that when you paint dry, they do dull a little bit as well. And worst case, if needs be, I've got the previous step on my wet palette. I can go back over if I needed. But I'm just taking my time and going around all the key areas. She's got a really nice pronounced sort of brow, and above her eyes and below the eyebrow, the nose and the chin and things, and just picking these out. And then you'll see as I come down to the shoulders and things, I'm only hitting certain areas, and it's just to build up the layers on this. And again, this is going on, it looks quite harsh when it first goes on, but it will dry a lot duller. And this is just to show the areas that I'm picking out on the shoulder as well. And I'm hitting less of the previous layer, so the contrast builds up as it goes to the highest point. And then when we come to the next step, I'll just pick out the finest points there with an even lighter highlight. So now we're at about 4-to-1 mix with the ultramarine, faded ultramarine with the jade green, and you can see now I'm just picking out the key areas. So the folds around her eyes, because she's got these really pronounced eyelids and this more sort of oval shaped eye that pinches in the corners, and I want to get those there to show off and pop a little bit more. The little folds on her ears that go to the points, anything that's the highest point I'll actually pick out now, and I'll cut through the footage so you can see me painting different areas, and you can see how I'm adding just a very little amount of paint. And at this point I'm using just the ultramarine, faded ultramarine colour now. And again, I'm concentrating a lot on the face, and this is just because this is, first of all, it's where I want the eye to be drawn to, but secondly, it's also the highest point as she's sort of in my mind as she's moving out of the shadow of the water into the light. So this is what's going to get the most contrast and the most attention as well. And again, I'm just picking out the key areas and just a few little bits. I'm not going overboard with this. And again, like I've mentioned earlier, it does look a bit harsh when it first goes on, but it does dry a lot darker as well. And because I'm using the wet palette and I've got all the stages there still fresh to use, if I do make a mistake I can come back and change it if need be. And now what I'm doing, I've got extremely thin down the jade green, and I'm just hitting the deepest recesses on areas of the skin, even these areas that are going to get the highest highlight, just to push the contrast for when we paint the the braids and the horns and things. Again, it looks really harsh when it's going on, but it blends quite nicely. And if I do go in a little bit too thick, I've got the lighter blue around there as well that I can go and pick on. But yeah, it's just a nice way of just giving a bit more contrast, and you're almost outlining the key areas on parts of the model where, like things here. So I'm just accentuating the shadow on the neck and things like that, and just going around and picking out a few areas with this heavily watered down jade green. So this step here, I've already base coated the braids, and basically what I've done is 1 part black to 1 part jade green, and just base coated them out. And then all I'm doing now is overbrushing and picking out a few highlights, and I've added a bit more jade green to the mix, and then we'll use pure jade green in a moment just to pick out the final highlights. I don't want to spend too much time on the hair, one because where it has, as the model is sort of shaped, and as I've mentioned with it coming out of the water, this is all behind the miniature, so you're not really going to see it anyway, and it's also in the most shade. But I want to pick out a little bit of the green, just that's, as I say, is all throughout all of the colours, just to marry it up a little bit more. And again, like I said, this was purely about just being a bit more free and easy, and it's been a nice change of pace with the previous videos, because those who've watched the channel know I've done a couple of competition pieces, and I've had to go like super focused in on those, especially the one from the last week when this comes out, the Nurgle sort of demon thing. And because I've had to be so focused, it's nice just to sort of be a bit more loose and a bit more free with this. And it's something I do recommend to painters, as you're working your way through stuff, you can put loads of effort into something, and it, you know, it'll turn out really nice. Just go and have a bit of a break and paint something different. So I was, you know, deliberately picked something that wasn't a monster, wasn't full of gore, and had just some really nice pastel colours on there, and just express myself a bit more. And it's a nice change of pace, and it's something that we should all do, just to, if you imagine just clearing out that sort of mindset that you've been in for the couple of weeks that you've been painting the previous project or whatever it might be, and just taking your time with it, and as I say, not worrying too much about the finished result. It's more just having a bit of fun. You can see here now, so I've got more of the jade green, and I'm just being a bit more focused in my areas. I'm going to pick out all the little rings and things, and it's just going to have this one colour all over, no variation, because as I say, I want it to just be noticeable that there's different shades of light and contrast in there, but I don't want it to overpower the fact that the focal point is a face and sort of a neck area as well. And this is one of those points when I went back and looked at that sort of light matte map that photo I'd taken. Some of the areas on the braids, especially these little ringlets, were a bit more prominent. Now again, because I don't want to mix up the colours, what I've done is I'm going in with pure jade green now, and just picking those out. And it's actually, it adds enough contrast that gives a nice variation of all the different textures on the braids and things, and shows off everything that's there. But I'm not worrying about doing them all individual colours and highlighting them differently and things like that. It's just a nice way to break up that large area of hair without having to worry too much about detail. And you can see I'm just going around, I'm picking out the raised edges, I'm not doing all of it, and it's just enough there to give a bit more visual interest, because I want the focal point to be the face. And then this bit, just to variate those sort of, I think the bits of seaweed that are covering her breast, the necklace, and the earrings as well. Again, because I want everything to be using the same colour scheme and the same colours on the palette. What I've done is I've got a little bit of the ultramarine, faded ultramarine, and I've added just a tiniest amount of black just to desaturate it a bit more, and I'm picking out those details. The beads will get more of the jade mixed in. And then what we'll do is we'll wash those particular areas just to get into all the creases and things, just to pick out those details a bit more. Right, so the eagle-eyed viewers of you might have noticed that on her head there was a fault in the print, there was a little hole, and on her shoulder as well. What I've done is I've UV resin that to completely smooth it over, and then I've gone back in with the blue paints on her skin just to cover them up. And now what we're doing is just to give a bit more contrast to the areas. So this sort of seaweed bra thing that she's got, that's going to be covered now with some military shade wash from Army Painter, just to get into the recesses and give it a bit more contrast, and same with the hair as well. That'll get that all over, and it's just to darken those deepest recesses. On her horns, because that's had the same base coat as the hair braids, that'll just get a Army Painter's blue wash instead. And again, it's just there to give a bit more contrast, just to show that all those areas are individual, and tint them slightly. And again, both the colours I'm using there, the green and the blue washes, marry in with the actual skin tones where I've got that green and blue mixed in, and it should just have everything working all alongside each other when you see the final results. And there she's finished. Really happy with this paint job and how it's turned out. I know it's a lot more simple compared to what I've done in the past, especially like with all the extra little bits of detail on her, as I say, the hair, the horns and the jewellery and things. I've concentrated solely on the skin and getting the tones right on that. For me, I don't mind. I think it works. It's because everything's got that unifying jade green running throughout for a start. Everything marries together a bit more. I think it gives enough visual interest. Yes, I could have done, spend more time, like I say, on those extra details, but I want her to stand out, and I want the flesh and that face especially to be the main focal point, and it picks out all the shadows in the right areas. I'm really happy with it. And as I say with the title of the video, sometimes just wing it, have a bit of fun and go for something you wouldn't normally do. Try something a bit different, especially if you've been painting, let's say you've been doing, I don't know, Space Marines for a couple of weeks. Go and do something different, even if it's just a fancy miniature. Just switch up genres if need be, because you'll find it'll reset your sort of brain. You won't get bogged down with, oh, I've got to paint these details again, and just be a bit free and loose with it and express yourself a bit more. I found that this jade green, because this was a video I did something similar with the vampire bust, if anyone's seen that on the channel, where I used that jade green as initial base coat. It's a really nice way to give this sort of otherworldly, ethereal sort of feel to it. But yeah, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Any comments and anything I will answer, so don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and all that stuff. We'll see you on the next one. I'm going to wrap up this sort of season next week, go through some of my favourite paint jobs and things, and then look at what's coming up in the next few videos. I'm going to be working on more display pieces, because I've sort of got the bug for that now. But yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you everyone.